Hey FlossTube, this is Brian. Welcome back. This is my 20th FlossTube video, and it will be an update of my stitching activities for the months of August and September 2017. Yes, it's been a couple months, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But first of all, I would like to welcome everybody. If you are new to my channel, I hope that you enjoy my videos, and welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. And also thank you for all of your comments, for liking my videos and subscribing to my channel. It always makes my day to hear that you enjoy the things that I have shared, and I always enjoy hearing from you. First of all, the past couple months have been kind of busy. I've had a couple of really kind of big events happen that have kind of cut into my stitching time a little bit. First of all, I took my daughter back to school in the end of August. Took her back to BYU. She is a junior this year and is back into school and getting settled down again. In the end of September, my son, who has been serving an LDS mission in Mexico, came home. His mission is over and he has returned home. It was a wonderful day when he came home. It's been 2 years since we've seen him. I mean, we've talked to him over Skype like twice a year, and we've received emails from him, but we haven't had any other contact with him. And it was a really special day to have him come home and to see him come out of the concourse when we met him at the airport. He is settling down into life. When he first got home, he had a pretty thick Mexican accent that is starting to disappear a little bit. He was kind of funny. He kept calling my wife hermana, which was really funny. But he's kind of settled down. He's getting ready to start at Utah State. Go Aggies! That's my alma mater. In January, he will be starting there. And he's actually up in Utah right now, basically getting things in place so that he'll be ready to start. Also, at the end of September, about 5 days after my son came home, I ended up traveling on business, and I ended up spending last week in Norway. People who heard I was going to Norway were like, "Oh, that's wonderful! You'll enjoy it. You'll love Norway." And in all actuality, I spent most of my time in a conference room and in an office. We did have one day. We flew over, we arrived on Saturday, and on Sunday we spent most of the day walking around the city that we were in, which is called Trondheim. It's a city that's about 6 hours north of Oslo, and we explored the city. It is just a beautiful place. The city is beautiful, the architecture is beautiful, the countryside around Trondheim is beautiful. I just really enjoyed exploring that. It was a good trip. We accomplished a lot of what we set out to do, and now at work I'm just dealing with the aftermath. All of that has kind of cut into my time of stitching a little bit, and also in my time of making videos, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, I want to talk about some stitching stuff. About in August, I kind of got a case of startitis, and this is kind of weird. I've kind of gone through kind of a process in the last couple of months. Yeah, at the beginning of August, I had a bit of startitis, and I decided that I wanted to start something. So I got out the fabric that I had chosen to use for it, and in the past, I've talked about how when I start a piece, I find the middle and then I count down to the corner. Well, doing that saved my bacon, because as I was counting over to the edge, I started to notice it felt like I was getting to the edge sooner than I should have been. And then when I was counting down to the corner, I was like, there's just not enough room. There's not enough margin on this piece. There was enough room to stitch it, but there would have been no margin to stitch. And I was like, this is really strange. It's labeled as 32 count, and I'm counting 32 count, and it's the right size. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, then I pulled out my ruler and counted threads and found out that it was 28 count. I had 28 count linen that was marked as 32 count. And the other thing that looked really strange to me is when I find the center, you know, I fold it in half and in half again. And as I was counting over to the side, it looked like compared to the crease in the fabric, it looked like my pins were going up diagonally. And so I also looked at it, and it was cut square, but when they cut it, it had been skewed. So it wasn't even, the piece of fabric wasn't even square. And so I was really quite disgusted. But I was glad that I had counted down, because if I had started in the middle, or if I had counted 3 inches in from the corner, I would have been in real big trouble, and I would have stitched a lot before I'd actually found out what was going on. At any rate, I decided to go to Attic Needlework to get another piece of fabric that I knew was 32 count. And while I was there, I had somebody else recognize me, and I ended up talking about how I do my diagonal stitching, and it was really one of the ladies there had her camera and pulled out her Instagram and pulled out the picture that I had posted the night before. that was really kind of strange to see my picture on somebody else's phone, but it was great. It was a great experience. Also, a few months ago, Tracy P posted a video where she basically critiqued her first FlossTube video and challenged everybody to do the same. I'm not witty enough to be entertaining enough to go through my first video, but I did go back and watch my first video, and it was a rather enlightening experience. I thought it'd be really that it would make me cringe. It didn't, which was kind of a surprise. But I did notice one thing, and I noticed my first video at the time had been just over a year before, so it had been a year. And I noticed the pieces that I had shown, and it was rather eye-opening, because I was amazed at how much progress I had made on Autumn Magic in a year. I was amazed at how much I'd actually stitched. And I was also surprised because some of my other projects, I hadn't accomplished quite as much on them as I had thought I had in a year. For example, Winter Sampler, it had changed, but not as much as I thought it had. I was really shocked, and that whole experience has kind of changed the way I look at my cross stitch, and it made me kill my rotation. I'm not rotating anymore. I've decided that if I really want to finish Autumn Magic, that I've got to really commit myself to it, and I've got to really spend some time on it. And so I have started working on Autumn Magic for half a month, and I thought that I would get tired of it, but my attitude towards that piece has completely changed. I guess I've figured out how to love the piece that I'm stitching, and I've really enjoyed stitching on it, and you're going to see quite a bit of progress from the last time you saw Autumn Magic when I show it. The other thing that I decided to do is I want to concentrate on finishing a lot of my other projects that I have in progress. I think half a month working on a project, I will be able to actually get more finishes more quickly. And kind of what had convinced me about that is when I talked about finishing my Corazon sampler, I realized that if I had worked on that constantly, it would only have taken me a couple of months to stitch. And so I'm only working on 2 pieces a month now. And I hope that I can be able to kind of get more finishes, and I kind of want to get down to the point where I have only a couple of whips going at once. That's going to take a little bit of time, not as much time as I originally thought, but that's what I'm doing. Now, I'm not going to hold myself to 2 pieces a month. I am going to hold myself to half a month with Autumn Magic, and I may change things up a little bit. I don't know. I'm trying not to be too hard on myself, because I want to make sure that I always am enjoying the things that I stitch. So as I show you the pieces that I've worked on, you're going to see some things as I was rotating, and then you're going to see the 2 pieces that I've been really working on for August and for like half of August and September. So that's that. I also had somebody, this is going to sound really bad, but I had somebody, I commented on one of Johnny's videos that she started doing in Spanish, and I commented in Spanish, and all of a sudden I got a bunch of people replying to my comments saying that they wanted to hear me make a video in Spanish. And I kind of played around with the idea for a while, and my Spanish is so rusty that I would, if I tried to speak Spanish exclusively in a video, part of it is my Spanish is rusty, and another is that my vocabulary, I've lost a lot of my Spanish vocabulary, so I'd be stammering all over the place. And it really gave me an appreciation for those of you whose native language isn't English. I really appreciate you and your ability and bravery, I guess I would say, to make videos in English, which is not your English, not your native language. I've kind of gained a new appreciation for what that requires. So thank you. So let's get on to my projects. First of all, because my rotation has kind of died, my graphs don't really make a lot of sense, but I am going to show you one. I'm going to show you this, which is my stitching trend, and this kind of tells the story of my life. You'll notice that the number of days that I stitched in September dropped significantly. So I didn't stitch as much in September, and you'll also notice that the number of stitches that I put in has dropped significantly. That is just because I'm working on Autumn Magic and I can't stitch as many stitches. It's full coverage and it's pretty confetti heavy, so it's just going to drop my stitch count. So this is kind of deceiving. It's not as discouraging as it looks, but that's the way it looks. So first of all, I'll show you another graph. This is a graph of my finishes, my finish trend, and you'll notice that I had another finish. Yeah, I decided to finish one of my pieces just to get it out of the way, and that piece that I finished is whoops. And the piece that I finished is my duck. So I've been working on Pintail. This is one of a set of 4 duck decoy still lifes. It was published in For the Love of Cross Stitch, the November 1994 and January 1995 issues. They're based on some still life paintings by Judy Gibson, and they were adapted by Donna Vermillion. So I've been working on Pintail, and I finished Pintail, and that has been really quite fun. So I'm going to show you what Pintail looks like now that it is finished, and I am really happy with this. You know, this is another case of I did all the cross stitching, and then I did the back stitching, and the back stitching just made all the difference in the world. So this is what Pintail looks like. It's another duck. And I think I've mentioned in the past that this is my least favorite of the 4 designs. But even so, I really like how it turned out. I like this cloth. Finishing the weight and the rope that goes over to the decoy. That just adds a little extra detail. And yeah. No, I really like this. This fabric is 28 count light mocha Cashel linen. And yeah, no, I really like how that turned out. I've got 2 more ducks to stitch, and my plans are kind of when I get the other 2 stitched, I'm going to frame them. It shouldn't be too hard to find a frame that fits those, and then I'm going to hang them somewhere, maybe in my cubicle at work. I don't know, but that's a little ways away, so we'll see where they eventually end up. I also worked on another piece that I worked on, and I'm just going through what I've worked on. It's been 2 months. I don't remember the order, so I'm not sure that this is the order that I worked on stuff, but this is what I worked on. So the first piece that I worked on was my English garden sampler. Of course, this is the design by Teresa Wentzler. I'm stitching on 25 count antique white Lugana, and I am stitching it with Sullivan's Floss. And I'll insert a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. So this is what it looked like. And this is, I only worked on this for about 4 days, and this is kind of the reason, kind of an illustration of the reason why I've decided to go to just 2 pieces, because I only did another diagonal, and so because of that, you know, my progress isn't really great. But this is what it looks like now. I'll pull back so that you can see the entire piece with the border. And this is the vignette. So I finished this diagonal and started this one. You'll notice that I finished, basically this column is completely finished. Also, I've hit the bottom of this this vignette, this English garden scene. So now my diagonals are going to stay the same width until this gets over here. And I really like how this is turning out. As always, I am just amazed at how realistic or artistic Teresa Wentzler's pieces are. So, yeah. So this column here is surrounded in vines and flowers, and you're starting to see some of the flowers here as well. Yeah, so it looks really good. So that's an English garden sampler. Okay, the next piece that I worked on for a little bit is a winter sampler. This is a design by Sandy Orton. She's part of Kooler Design Studio. And there are several people working on this. I am stitching this on 28 count tea-dyed Monaco. And I'll insert a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. So since then, I basically have worked on another diagonal. This is what it looks like now. So I finished this diagonal. This clock is basically finished now. We're starting to see there's a couple of mice up here that you're starting to see. The banner is finished. I've hit this. This is the upper corner of the piece. So the next time I come in, we'll start seeing the horizontal line across, and the diagonals are going to start getting shorter, which I'm really excited about. I stitched more of this ice. This is the scene with the two ice skaters, and you're starting to see a little bit of the ice that they're skating on, this blue right here. Also, Santa is completely finished. This whole frame is finished. So he looks really good. And we're starting to get over to where there's a snowman in this picture that's behind Santa. So we're starting to see the snowman as well. And this all looks good. It's going to look better when it's backstitched, I'm sure. So basically that's what that looks like. I really enjoy working on this, and I think that this will be the next piece that I concentrate on after I finish the piece that I'm working on. Maybe. I don't know. I may go for something that's a little bit less intense. Okay, now this one's the treat. This is Autumn Magic. Of course, it's a painting by Randal Spangler, and it's charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. It says House in an Autumn Setting. I'm stitching it on 25 count Lugana, and I'm stitching it over 1/1. And like I say, I've worked on this 2 weeks in August and 2 weeks in September. And because of that, I've actually accomplished quite a bit. And this is what it looks like now. So this was the page that I was working on. I finished that page. I finished this page here, and then I finished this page over here. So I have, since the last time you saw that, I have finished 3 pages. Now they were all partially stitched. So I guess that's not quite as an accomplishment as it sounds, but I really like how it's turned out. And then I've decided I'm going to just keep working diagonally. That means I'm going to start working on this page up here. So this doesn't look like much right now. It's just blobs of orange. I'm sure that'll look a lot better when I get over here, because we'll see the edge of the house coming up along the edge of this page. I just seeing all of this completed, I just love how it's looking. We're starting to see the finial on the top of the fence over here. And of course more of the cobblestone path that goes over towards the house. I'm looking forward to working on this page, although that page is going to be pretty confetti heavy, I'm afraid. But we'll start seeing more of the house, and I'll be glad to finish this arch. Also, something else that I'm doing differently here. I have been, up until about a month ago, I was stitching 10 stitch diagonals. And I started to decide that I was going to do 20 stitch diagonals. So this is 20 stitches from the top of this column down to here. And I decided to do that for a couple of reasons. First of all, that kind of, if I have a night when I don't have a lot of time to stitch, that kind of forces me to do 200 stitches instead of 100 stitches at a time. It takes a little bit longer to do those 200 stitches than it would 100, but I also think that it doesn't take as long as it would take if I were to do 100 stitches separately. And part of the reason why that is I'm stitching a larger area, and what that means is that each color potentially has more stitches to stitch. So I think that kind of makes it a little bit easier to handle the confetti. So yeah, but no, I'm really quite amazed with how this looks. And like I say, I've really started to fall in love with it. And I am looking forward to seeing more of this page and seeing more of this design develop. I think if I go at the pace that I'm going, I don't know, it'll probably be a long time before it's actually finished. But yeah, so I've stitched 6 pages now, and there are 44 pages total. That means I have 38 to go. The last piece that I want to show you is the piece that I am working on right now, and that is Anaphora Screw. Of course, this is a design by Rosewood Manor. I'm stitching it on 32 count Lugana. Have you seen Stephanie's finished? Stephanie at Lindy Stitches, she finished hers, and it looks really awesome. And when I saw that she'd finished hers, that made me want to finish mine. So that's part of the reason why that's the other piece that I'm working on. So I'll insert a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. And actually, you're going to see quite a bit of progress on this too. So, let me see. This is what it looks like now. So I think since you last saw it, I stitched this page with all of the text. And then I stitched this page, that's the edge of the tree. I stitched this page underneath. And yesterday last night I finished this page as well. So there are only 3 pages left to go. And in a week, I can stitch it. Up until this point, I've been able to stitch a page in about 3 or 4 days. I don't know if that's going to hold out. This page actually took me a while to stitch. This is the piece that I took with me to Norway to stitch on. And I didn't really have a lot of time to stitch in Norway, so I didn't accomplish a whole lot. By the time we got out of work and ate dinner, it'd be like 9 o'clock when we got back to the hotel, so I didn't have a lot of time to stitch. And of course, my scroll rods would not fit in my suitcase. They're too wide for my suitcase. So I bought a spring hoop like the hoops that Kay uses, and I really liked the tension I could get with that hoop, but I found it really cumbersome to work with. And part of the reason why is that I stitch two-handed, and I figured out how to stitch two-handed using the hoop, but it wasn't really a good, it turned out to be really cumbersome and more than I wanted to deal with. I think if I were to use a hoop, I'd have to figure out something to hold it so that I would have both my hands free. So this tree right here, that tree was a nightmare to stitch. There's just so many different little pieces of colors all the way through it. That took forever to stitch. And to stitch it on a hoop just made it that much worse. I really like this tree. I like the gradient in the tree. I like this tree too. And I like this pear tree too. So I'm excited to continue working on this. I have 3 or 4 more days. I thought before my trip to Norway, I thought I'd be able to finish this month, but I don't think that's going to happen unless I decide that I'm so close that I'm just going to finish it, but that would take time away from Autumn Magic, so I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do. But yeah, so I think with that big tree in the middle finished, it's just starting to look really good. I'm looking forward to seeing this finished as well. It's going to look awesome when it's done. So yeah, so that's everything I've worked on, and I'll just share with you some of my plans, and I've kind of already said that. I'm going to continue working on Autumn Magic and Anaphora Screw. I'm hoping if I don't finish Anaphora Screw this month, it will definitely be finished next month. And then I think I'm going to work on Winter Sampler, unless I decide that I want to do something more blatantly Christmas. But I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. So, like I say, I'm headed for 2, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to hold myself to more than two projects, or I may work on a piece for a couple of months and then decide I want to work on one of my other pieces. So I don't know, I'm going to be a little bit flexible because I want to enjoy stitching. And basically the startitis that I mentioned at the beginning of that I had at the beginning of the month, it's gone. I don't have any startitis. I'm just loving the pieces that I'm stitching on. So those are my plans. Once again, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for spending time with me. If you have any questions or anything that you want to, any comments, feel free to comment below. As I mentioned, it's kind of getting hard for me to make videos. There's just the time that I used to use to make my videos is I can't make them anymore at that time, and I haven't found another time to do it. So I'm kind of having a hard time making videos. However, I am still stitching pretty regularly. I am also being more consistent with posting on my blog. I'm posting on my blog a couple times a month. So if you want to interact with me on my blog, feel free to do that. I'll post a link to it down below. Basically, my goal with that is that every time I finish working on a piece for a period that I post an update on what I've done. And I think that seems to be a little bit easier than making a video. That's not saying that I'm going to stop making videos, but I think I'm going to end up being more consistent blogging than I am making videos. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram. I continue to post my daily progress there, and enjoy hearing from you on Instagram as well. At any rate, I hope that you have a great month, and once again, thanks for spending time with me, and we will talk to you later. Goodbye.